Some stories in Kandara were never told during the day because the sun had a way of making people feel safe, even when they were not. After the night of the Mimiki, the village changed. The elders kept their promise. From that day forward, every child in Kandara knew the truth. They knew why the doors were locked. They knew what walked outside after sunset. And most importantly, they knew never to answer when something called their name in the dark. For a while, everything was peaceful. No doors opened, no child disappeared. The Mimiki stopped coming as often. Some villagers even began to believe that the danger had passed. But Mama Zubari knew better. Spirits do not give up, she warned. They wait. Weeks passed. Then one morning, something changed. It began quietly. So quietly that no one noticed at first, except Tano. It was just after sunrise. The village had come alive again with the usual sounds: children laughing, goats bleating, women preparing food. Tano stood near the well, watching everything carefully as he always did now. That's when he saw him, Bako, the youngest boy. The same boy who had almost opened the door that night. He was standing near the edge of the village, alone, not playing, not laughing, just standing there, watching. Tano frowned. That wasn't normal. Bako was always running around, always laughing, always chasing something. But now, he was still, too still. Tano slowly walked toward him. Bako, he called. The boy didn't respond. Tano came closer. Bako, are you okay? Slowly, Bako turned his head. Tano felt a strange chill. Something about the way he moved felt wrong. Too slow, too smooth. Did you hear me? Tano asked. Bako stared at him. Then he smiled. It was a small smile, but it didn't feel right. I'm fine, Bako said. His voice sounded normal, but something inside it felt empty. Tano's heart began to beat faster. Why are you standing here alone? He asked. Bako didn't answer immediately. Instead, his eyes drifted past Tano, towards the huts. I like it here, he said softly. Tano followed his gaze. He was looking at the doors, studying them, the same way the Mimiki used to. A cold wave ran through Tano's body. Bako, he said slowly, what did you dream about last night? Bako blinked. The question seemed to confuse him. Dream? He repeated. Yes, Tano said carefully. You always talk about your dreams. Bako's smile faded slightly. I don't remember. That was the moment Tano knew. Something was wrong, very wrong, because Bako always remembered his dreams, always. Before Tano could say anything else, Bako suddenly stepped closer, too close. And for just a brief second, Tano saw it, the eyes. They flickered, just for a moment, but it was enough. For a split second, they were completely black. Tano stepped back quickly, his heart pounding. Bako tilted his head. Why are you afraid? He asked softly. Tano forced himself to stay calm. I'm not afraid. But he was, because now he understood something terrifying. The Mimiki had not failed. They had not disappeared. They had succeeded. Somehow, one of them had gotten inside, and it was pretending to be Bako. Tano's mind raced. But how? No door had opened that night. No child had gone outside. So how had the Mimiki entered the village? Unless a terrible thought struck him. What if they didn't need a door anymore? What if the rules had changed? Bako suddenly smiled again. A slow, unnatural smile. You shouldn't be outside so much, Tano, he said quietly. It's not safe. The word sounded like a warning, but they felt like something else, like a threat. Tano took another step back. "I have to go," he said. Bako didn't stop him. He just stood there, watching. As Tano walked away, he felt something crawling up his spine, a feeling he couldn't shake, that something was watching him, studying him, learning him, just like before. But this time, it wasn't outside the village. It was already inside. And as Tano turned back one last time, he saw Bako still standing there, smiling, not like a child, but like something pretending to be one. Tano didn't tell anyone, not at first, because how could he? If he was wrong, he would only spread fear, but if he was right, then fear was already too late. The image of Bako's eyes haunted him. That brief flicker, that moment when they turned completely black. It wasn't imagination, it wasn't a trick of light. Tano had seen it before, in the night, in the Mimiki, and now, inside the village. The rest of the day felt wrong. Not obviously wrong, not enough for others to notice, but enough for Tano. Something had changed. He began watching more closely, listening more carefully, and slowly he started to see it. It wasn't just Bako. There were others. Small things at first. A girl who didn't recognize her own friend. A boy who forgot where he lived. Another child who stood silently staring at nothing for too long. At first, the adults dismissed it. They are tired. They are growing. They dream too much. But Tano knew better. Because one thing connected all of them. They didn't remember. Not properly. Not like real children. That afternoon, Tano went looking for Mama Zubari. If anyone could explain this, it was her. He found her inside her hut, grinding herbs again. But the moment she saw his face, she stopped. "You've seen something," she said. Tano nodded. "They are inside." The words felt heavy as they left his mouth. Mama Zubari's hands froze. Who? The Mimiki. Silence filled the hut. Then Tano told her everything. About Bako, about the eyes, about the strange behavior of the other children. When he finished, the old woman leaned back slowly. "This should not be possible," she whispered. "But it is," Tano said. She closed her eyes for a long moment. Then she spoke in a voice lower than before. "There is only one way." Tano leaned forward. "How?" Mama Zubari looked at him carefully. "The Mimiki cannot create memories." Tano frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means they can copy a body," she tapped her temple, "but not a life." Tano's heart skipped. "So that's why they forget things." "Yes." Her eyes grew sharper. "They observe, they learn, they imitate, but they cannot truly remember what it means to be human." Tano felt a surge of urgency. "Then we can find them." Mama Zubari nodded slowly. "Yes, but we must be careful." "Why?" Her expression darkened. "Because if they realize we know." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Tano understood. They wouldn't just hide anymore. They would act. That evening, the village gathered as usual. Children played near the baobab tree. Adults spoke in small groups. Everything looked normal. But Tano saw it now. The differences, the cracks. Bako stood among the other children, laughing, playing. But his laughter came a second too late. His movements were just slightly off, like someone copying what they saw instead of living it. Tano approached him again. This time he was ready. "Bako," he said. The boy turned. "Yes?" Tano looked straight into his eyes. "What did we do by the river last week?" Bako paused, just for a moment, but it was enough. "River," he said. Tano's chest tightened. "You fell into the water," Tano said slowly. "I pulled you out." Another pause, then Bako smiled. "Oh, yes." But the answer came too late, too forced, too empty. Tano stepped back. It was him. There was no doubt now. Bako wasn't Bako anymore. And if one Mimiki had entered the village, others could too. That night, Tano couldn't stop thinking. The rules had changed. Before, the danger was outside. Now, it was inside. And worse, no one else seemed to notice. Or maybe they were starting to. Because later that evening, something happened. A mother screamed. The sound cut through the village like a knife. People rushed toward the noise. Tano ran too. When he arrived, a crowd had gathered outside a hut. A woman stood in the doorway, shaking. Tears streamed down her face. "It's not my child," she cried. "It's not him." Inside the hut, a small boy sat silently, watching, not crying, not speaking, just staring. The elders pushed through the crowd. "What happened?" one asked. The woman pointed. "He doesn't remember me." Her voice broke. "He doesn't remember anything." The boy tilted his head, just like the Mimiki did, the same unnatural motion. A cold silence spread through the crowd. The elders exchanged looks, and in that moment, they knew. The nightmare had returned. But this time, it was worse, because now the Mimiki were not waiting outside the doors. They were already inside the homes, already sitting at the fires, already sleeping beside families, already pretending. Tano felt fear rise in his chest. This was no longer about one child. This was spreading, and no one knew how many had already been replaced. As the crowd slowly backed away from the hut, the boy inside smiled, a slow, unnatural smile. And for just a brief second, his eyes turned completely black. Fear spread through Kandara like fire in dry grass. But this time, it did not come from the darkness outside. It came from within. After the mother's scream, nothing felt safe anymore. Children were no longer just children. They were questions, doubts, suspicions. That night, the elders made a decision, a dangerous one. At the center of the village, beneath the great baobab tree, everyone gathered before sunset. The air was thick with tension. No one laughed, no one spoke freely. The oldest elder stepped forward. "We can no longer pretend everything is normal," he said. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "There are those among us who are not who they seem." A wave of unease passed through the villagers. Mothers pulled their children closer. Fathers stood protectively beside their families. "We must test the children," the elder continued. Tano felt his chest tighten. "Test them? How?" someone asked nervously. The elder's voice grew heavy. "By their memories." A silence fell over the village, because now everyone understood. The Mimiki could copy faces, voices, movements, but not memories. The tests began immediately. One by one, children were called forward. Parents asked questions, simple ones. "What did we eat yesterday? Where do you sleep? What is your favorite game?" Most children answered easily, laughing, confident, real. But some hesitated. Some paused too long. Some gave answers that didn't make sense, and each hesitation made the crowd grow more afraid. Tano stood at the edge, watching everything carefully. His eyes scanned every face, looking, searching, because now the danger wasn't hidden anymore. It was standing in front of everyone. Then suddenly, "Tano!" His name was called. He froze. The elder looked at him. "Step forward." Tano walked slowly into the center. Dozens of eyes watched him. For a moment, a strange thought crossed his mind. What if they think I'm one of them? The elder studied him carefully. "Answer this," he said. "What did your mother cook last night?" Tano didn't hesitate. "Millet stew with dried fish." The elder nodded. "Another question. What is behind your hut?" "The small mango tree and the broken fence." Another nod. The elder stepped back. "He is real." A breath of relief escaped Tano's chest. But the relief didn't last, because then, Bako, the name echoed through the crowd. Tano's heart dropped. The boy stepped forward, calm, silent, watching. The same unnatural stillness, the same delayed reactions. The elder looked at him. "What did your mother sing to you when you were sick?" Bako said nothing. The silence stretched. The crowd shifted uneasily. The elder repeated the question. Bako blinked slowly. "I don't remember." A ripple of fear spread instantly. The mother from earlier began to cry again. The elder's face hardened. What is your favorite place in the village? Another pause. Too long. Well, Bako said uncertainly. Gasps rose from the crowd. It was wrong. Everyone knew it. Bako hated the well. He was afraid of water. The elder stepped back slowly. His voice dropped. This is not your child. The words hit the crowd like thunder. Mothers gasped. Some people stepped away. Others pulled their children behind them. Fear turned into something worse. Panic. What do we do? Someone shouted. The elders exchanged worried looks. But before anyone could answer, Bako smiled, slowly, unnaturally. Then he spoke. You finally see us. The voice was no longer a child's. It was deeper, colder, wrong. The crowd froze. We tried to be gentle, to learn, to become. Its eyes turned black, completely black. But you made it difficult. Tano felt his heart pounding violently. The Mimiki looked around at the villagers, and then it said something that changed everything. There are more of us. Silence. Heavy, terrifying silence. Somewhere in the crowd, a child laughed, a soft, unnatural laugh. Then another, and another. Tano turned quickly. 3 children stood near the edge, all smiling, all wrong. Their eyes slowly turned black. Gasps filled the air. The truth hit the village all at once. It wasn't just one. It wasn't just a few. The Mimiki were already among them, blended in, hidden, watching, waiting. And now they were no longer hiding. The first Mimiki stepped forward. You cannot stop this, it said calmly. You cannot tell who is real. Fear exploded through the crowd. People backed away from each other. Parents looked at their own children with doubt. Children looked at their friends with fear. Trust shattered in an instant. Tano felt it too. That terrible thought creeping into his mind. What if someone I love isn't real anymore? The Mimiki smiled wider. This is how we win, it said softly. Not through force, through confusion, through doubt, through fear. The sky darkened as the sun finally slipped behind the hills. Night had come. But this time, the darkness wasn't outside the village. It was already inside. And no one knew who to trust anymore. That night, Kandara did not sleep. Not a single soul. For the first time in generations, the fear of the village was no longer about what waited outside the doors, but about who was already inside them. After the Mimiki revealed themselves beneath the baobab tree, the elders ordered everyone back into their homes before darkness fully settled. But this time, locking the doors brought no comfort, because now the question was no longer what is outside. It was who is inside with me. Tano sat in the corner of his hut, his back against the wall, his eyes fixed on his parents. The fire between them flickered weakly. The shadows moved along the walls like silent watchers. His mother stirred the pot slowly. His father sat quietly staring into the flames. Everything looked normal, too normal. And that was the problem. Tano's mind whispered something he didn't want to believe. What if one of them isn't real anymore? His chest tightened. He hated the thought. But after what he had seen, after what the Mimiki had said, he could not ignore it. They cannot copy memories, he reminded himself silently. That was the only truth he could hold on to, the only way to know. But asking questions now felt dangerous. What if they noticed? What if the Mimiki inside the village had already learned to hide their weakness? The silence inside the hut grew heavier. Then suddenly, Tano, his mother's voice, soft, gentle, but it made his heart jump. Yes, he replied carefully. She turned toward him. Why are you looking at us like that? Tano froze. He hadn't realized it was so obvious. I'm just thinking. His father spoke next.
About the Mimiki? Tano nodded slowly. His father leaned forward slightly. You did the right thing, he said calmly. You told the elders. The words should have comforted him, but something about the tone felt off. Too calm, too controlled.
Tano swallowed. Father, he said slowly, what did we do last full moon? A simple question. But the moment it left his mouth, the air in the hut changed. His mother stopped staring. His father's eyes lifted slowly. And for a brief moment, too brief for anyone else to notice, something passed through his father's expression. A flicker. Then it was gone. We sat outside, his father said. We watched the moon. Tano's stomach dropped. That wasn't true. Last full moon, his father had been sick. He hadn't left his bed. Tano's hands began to tremble. No, he whispered. His mother turned to him. What do you mean, no? Tano's breathing became shallow. That didn't happen, he said. His father's gaze sharpened. What are you saying? Tano slowly stood up, fear rising inside him like a storm. You were sick, he said. You didn't go outside. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. His father stared at him, unmoving. Then slowly, he smiled. A slow, unnatural smile. Tano's heart stopped. His mother stepped back slightly. Why are you smiling like that? She whispered. His father didn't answer her. His eyes were locked on Tano. And then they changed. Black. Completely black. Tano stumbled backward, his breath catching in his throat. No, he gasped. It can't be. But it was. The Mimiki had not just entered the village, it had entered his home. His father, or whatever was pretending to be him, stood slowly. You are smarter than the others, it said. The voice was wrong now. Deeper, colder. Too smart. Tano's mother screamed. What are you? The Mimiki turned its head toward her, slowly, calmly. Then it spoke. I am what comes after you forget who you are. The hut felt smaller, the air heavier. Tano's mind raced. The door. He had to get out. He had to warn the others. But the Mimiki moved faster than anything human. In a blink, it was in front of the door, smiling, waiting. Tano's heart pounded violently. He looked around desperately. There had to be a way out. Then he remembered something. Mama Zubari's words. They cannot create memories. An idea sparked in his mind. Dangerous, but it was all he had. Tano stepped forward slowly, facing the Mimiki. You are not my father, he said. The creature tilted its head. No, I am better. Tano clenched his fists. If you are really him, he took a deep breath. Tell me what you said to me the day I was afraid of the river. The Mimiki paused, just for a moment, but it was enough. Tano said, you don't know. The creature's smile faded slightly. You will never. Tano's voice grew stronger. Because you can copy his face, but not his life. For the first time, the Mimiki looked uncertain. Behind it, the door stood closed. But now, Tano understood something important. The Mimiki didn't just need doors. They needed belief, trust, confusion. And if he broke that, he could fight back. The creature stepped closer again, its eyes dark, its voice low. Then let us see how long you remember. Outside, the village echoed with distant screams. More voices, more chaos, more fear. The Mimiki were everywhere now. And Kandara was no longer a village. It was a trap. The screams outside grew louder. Kandara was breaking. Not from outside forces, but from within. Tano stood frozen inside his hut, facing the thing that wore his father's face. His mother clung to him, trembling. The Mimiki watched them both, calm, patient, certain. You cannot win, it said quietly. You will forget,
like the others. Tano's heart pounded. Forget? His mind flashed back to Mama Zubari's words. They cannot create memories. But now he understood something deeper. The Mimiki didn't just fail to remember. They erased, they replaced, not just faces, not just voices, but lives. Slowly, quietly, until no one could tell what was real anymore. Tano looked into the creature's black eyes, and suddenly he understood the truth. You didn't come through the doors, he whispered. The Mimiki tilted its head. Tano's voice shook, but he kept speaking. You came when we started doubting each other. Silence. The creature didn't answer, but its smile faded slightly. That was enough. Tano stepped forward, stronger now. When we stopped trusting, when we stopped remembering who we are, his voice rose. That's when you entered. Outside, the screams began to fade. Not into silence, but into something else. Whispers, confusion. Tano turned toward the door, then back at the Mimiki. You don't need doors, he said. You need fear. The creature's eyes darkened further. You are learning too much, it said coldly. But Tano wasn't afraid anymore, because now he understood how to fight. He grabbed his mother's hand tightly. Look at me, he told her. She did, her eyes filled with tears. Tell me something only I would know. She blinked, then whispered, You used to be afraid of the dark until your father sat with you all night. Tano's chest tightened. That was real. That was memory. That was truth. The Mimiki took a step back. For the first time, it looked uncertain. Outside, voices began rising again, but this time they were different. People calling out, testing each other, remembering. What did we do last harvest? Who taught you to fish? Where did you hide when you were little? The village was fighting back, not with weapons, but with memory, with truth, with identity. The Mimiki hissed softly. Its form flickered. The face of Tano's father distorted for a brief second. You cannot stop all of us, it said. Tano met its gaze. We don't need to, he replied. We just need to remember. The creature let out a low, unnatural sound. Then it began to fade, its body dissolving like mist in sunlight, its black eyes the last thing to disappear. And then it was gone. Tano collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. His mother held him tightly. Outside, the village slowly returned, not to normal, but to something stronger, something aware. From that day forward, Kandara changed again. The doors were still locked at night, but now that was not their only protection. Every child was taught their story. Every family shared their memories. Every person held on to their truth, because they had learned something far more important than fear. The greatest danger was not what waits in the dark, but what makes you forget who you are. And even today, the elders of Kandara still say, lock your doors at night, but never lose your memory.